Okay, here we go, world history. This is Mr. Side, your teacher, and this is a quick review video for the age of the Enlightenment. A couple key ideas before we get started. Remember that the Enlightenment takes place from around the mid-1600s through the 1700s. It's a time when people use reason and new ways of thinking to improve society and reform government. Thinkers will challenge existing traditions. They will not simply accept things on faith, but they will base their ideas on reason, observation, and logic. Remember, though, these thinkers will not agree on everything. Now, a couple pointers before we begin. I would, right now, list some key questions that you have. When you finish the video, see if you're able to answer those questions. If you're not, come see Mr. Side. He'll help you out. As you watch, think about how these ideas are part of the world we live in today. Right now, pause the video and complete the tasks I asked you to do above. Alright, let's look at the Enlightenment. So, we start with the scientific revolution because it's so important to why the Enlightenment starts. The scientific revolution, simply put, tells people to observe and experiment, not just to take key ideas on faith. These observations and experiments will lead people to question the world as they know it. Later on, thinkers will apply the ideas of the scientific revolution to government, society, economics, religion, etc., etc. Throughout the film, I'll ask you to pause and review. When I do that, I'll ask you to look at what was important about the last slide and jot down a few ideas. I'll also ask you to write down key ideas that you think are important. Alright, first up, Thomas Hobbes, author of the Leviathan. He attacks the idea of divine right of kings, this idea that God has placed people on the throne, but he still believes in absolute monarchy. He does this because he believes in a social contract that the people have with their government. But he believes that you need an absolute monarch because people are naturally mean, and if you leave them alone, they're going to do bad things, that their animalistic side is going to come out. It's important to note Thomas Hobbes was alive during the English Civil War, so he probably saw a lot of violent acts take place between different groups of people. What was important about the last slide? What are some key ideas that you could write down? Pause at this time. Okay, John Locke, author of the two treatises on government. What's the most important thing to know about John Locke? He believes that government exists to protect people's natural rights. That's life, liberty, and property. He thought people were generally good so long as they had a government that protected their rights. He believed in a limited or constitutional monarchy where power is shared, in this case between a king and a parliament or some kind of congress. He believed that if government did not protect people's natural rights, they had the right to overthrow that government. Pause and review. Our friend Montesquieu wrote The Spirit of Laws. His key contribution is that he argues for a separation of powers in a system of checks and balances. That is to say, there should be three branches of government, much like our own: an executive branch that carries out the laws, a legislative branch that makes the laws, and a judicial branch that observes and oversees whether those laws are fair or just. Pause and review. Mr. Rousseau, author of The Social Contract. He believes that people are generally good, but that it's actually society that corrupts them and makes them do bad things. He believes in direct democracy, where every citizen gets an individual vote. He believed people were not truly free if they don't make their own decisions, and he's famous for saying that man was born free, but everywhere he was in chains. It's also important to note that Rousseau is a big advocate of reforming education. He saw educators of this time period treating children as if they were small versions of adults. And it's very important to note that Rousseau argued for treating children or various students, teaching them to their age, not just simply teaching everybody the same way. Pause and review. Adam Smith, an economist, writes The Wealth of Nations. He is known as the father of capitalism and promotes laissez-faire economics. He's famous for essentially saying that government should stay out of the way of the economy. In the time period in which he lived, too many governments had interfered with the flow of goods and services in and out of the economy. He believes in free trade and the laws of supply and demand. Now here's how supply and demand works. Prices would be determined by how many people want a product and how much of it's available. If a product is a good product, businesses will be created to meet the demand for that particular product. If a business is not doing a good job or doesn't make good products, that business will fail and others will take its place. This is essentially the laws of laissez-faire economics. There's more to it, but this is all we need to know for right now. Pause and review. Okay, Voltaire. Perhaps one of the most famous of all the philosophes. Those were the French philosophers. He is an advocate for social, religious, and political toleration. He was very much against what he saw as the evils of organized religion. He believed that people could have faith if they wanted to, and that was a good thing, but that when controlled by corrupt political or religious institutions, that bad things happen. Because of his beliefs, he was often arrested and imprisoned. Despite his views, he's in favor of an absolute monarchy, of an enlightened monarch. He believes that you'll get a ruler who, if they use the ideas of the Enlightenment, will have the power that Hobbes talks about with all the enlightened ideas of the Locke and Montesquieu and everybody else. That you'll have all those positive ideas of people and they'll be able to exist in that positive world, but that you still need that strong leader to carry out all of those reforms. Pause and review. Mr. Diderot was the main editor of the Encyclopedia. The Encyclopedia is one of the major achievements of this time period. It started in 1745 and wasn't finished till 1765. This was because it was a highly controversial collection of books. There's over 20 different books in this encyclopedia. Diderot is the main editor, but many, many people wrote or contributed articles. There were all types of books on science, the arts, philosophy, crafts, you name it. All of the sort of new ideas that were collected up until that point in time were included in one place. Now this was very dangerous because this was a time period where these ideas were challenging established tradition. They were challenging the ideas of monarchs and kings. It was challenging the ideas of the church. And to put all this knowledge into the hands of people seemed very dangerous. It's very simple and overlooked in our time period. We go to encyclopedias, we go to the internet, and all the knowledge of the world, for the most part, is only a click away. But in this time period, information wasn't that easy to come by. And in many cases, it was wrong, outdated, or based on tradition. Pause and review. All right, here we go, guys. I have a couple tasks for you, and I need you to do these so I know that you watched the video properly. First, I want you to think about your world today, and then answer the following questions that you'll write out on lined paper. You'll write the question out, and then you'll answer it and hand it in to Mr. Side. First question, how has our world been impacted by the Enlightenment? So think about the world today. Tell me how it hasn't been impacted by the Enlightenment. Think about our government, think about our economy, think about our educational system, and write a few ideas down. Then tell me why we still study the Enlightenment. So you're in school right now, you're wondering why you're studying Enlightenment. Think about the kind of ideas we talked about in this video presentation today. Why might they still be relevant to the world we live in, and why do we teach our young people about them? Finally, tell me which ideas from this presentation are part of the government or the economy of the United States. So think about the different philosophers we learned about and tell me which of the ideas they put forward are still alive in our government and our economy today. Write out these questions, answer them, and then hand them in to Mr. Side. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was a useful tool for your learning.